what happens.
Some people coming in here.
So we can't call it to order yet, but I suggest we have Commissioner Paulson run the meeting. How's that work?
Thanks. I would second that offer.
There you go.
Sure you would.
We got Nate, we got Jake. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
Oh, and there's Nate. Look at that. Nate's thumbs up. Looks like you got to call us to order.
Cool. Everybody in that's coming in?
One more is joining now. But I think that's
Debbie, I want you to know that my Easy Pass did work on the bridge. Did Kevin tell you about that?
You're muted.
I can tell what she's saying anyway, though.
The most common phrase these days, right? Debbie, you're muted, or somebody, you're muted. Yes. Anyway, I did think about you on Saturday, and I didn't think about the Easy Pass though, or the whatever.
The breeze by, yeah. No, I brought Kevin Greenwood with me so that his picture would be on the recording if I raced through it without it working.
Yes, I know, one of those scofflaws that we'd have to come after, right? Yep. Yeah. I heard the parade went well, and it was all good. Awesome. I know I'm gonna have to see that car one of these days. I've gotta, sometime when you're at some event, you'll have to let me know, and I'll shoot over and take a look at it.
Bring it.
Oh, you see at the Bridge Centennial.
Yeah.
How about
yeah. Perfect.
Okay, well, that's everybody. I'm going to informally call the meeting to order. We have Commissioner Babbitts, Commissioner or alternate Wilson, who's going to be voting with us today, and we have who else is going to be voting? I'm going to be voting.
I think Nate is the first on the list, and then
Yep. Nate,
and if Nate drops off, Jake is behind him.
oh, okay.
Yep, Nate, you're voting today. So myself, Arthur, and Nate are the voting members from Oregon. And then, is there anybody else from Washington on the left?
Carry the Washington contingent.
Yep,
Okay.
you got it. That's everybody. That's all the commissioners who are here. And then Jake is the alternate who's online. Any modifications, additions to the agenda? Hearing none. Moving forward with the agenda we have. Approval or correction of the minutes from August 26th.
I would move to accept the minutes from August 26th as submitted.
I would second that motion.
Motion is second for the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Chair votes aye. Motion, minutes are approved. Public comment. Now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? The public has 3 minutes to speak. If you wish to say anything, now is your time to do so. If you would push what number is it on the phone? 0?
Start something.
Star something.
Push start something.
Or if you're online, raise your hand via Zoom and we will call on you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing nobody, thank you. Executive report, the co-chairs are gone. So we're gonna skip them. Project director update. Michael, you're online. Or is that us?
That is us.
That's us.
Oh,
So I think
Never mind.
ready and
Ready is gonna run the sound.
Ready, you're in charge
Hey.
now.
All right. Project's done.
Want to give us an update, ready?
yeah, we're not hearing you. It's not showing you muted, but your mic's not working.
we did.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, just kind of go down the list of things that we've been working on the engineering side and a little bit on the funding, but I know the funding company will probably get into that. more. On the engineering side, we've submitted back to Kiewit the safety plan and the tribal coordination plan after reviewing on our end. So that has gone back into their court to address comments, and we're currently reviewing the design criteria package that has gone on internally for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and waiting some comments back from ODOT, WashDOT, and HRWSBA partners who are also currently reviewing those documents, providing comments on those. So we expect to send those back sometime this week and have them set up some coordination meetings to resolve those comments pretty soon. That's been going on. We've also gotten back revisions on our previous submissions that they've gone through the alternate assessment report and the existing conditions report.
We lost you, Reddy.
You're muted again.
That is weird. It's just been auto muting me. That is so weird. So where did you guys hear?
Good.
Did you guys hear me talk about the reports that are due?
We got to FHWA.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So we've been working on other reports that have been submitted back to us through revisions as well. We're also expecting some permit matrix that is going to be coming in this week for our first review. That's been asked to see what all permits we require before hitting a in-order work window in October 2025. So that's incoming. Other efforts ongoing on the right of way side, rights of entry forms have been mailed out, and our TL has been contacting folks to try and get those in. So we've been working in the background to get those done. We've also been talking to Kiewit about some coordinating construction access impacts to our environmental efforts. So that's something that we just started a conversation on this week. So that's ongoing as well. We'll update the team moving forward how that turns out. On the funding side, just to touch briefly on infra grant agreement is progressing. It's back in. It cleared the local review in the Oregon side, and it has been moved to the DC side for their headquarter review. They've also given us approval on the tapered match last week, or tapered match request. What that allows us to do is essentially be off balance in our matching requirements. On every quarter when we submit reimbursements, we don't have to be in balance with the matching requirements and can just submit off balance per the approved schedule. So that's been approved recently. On the BIP grant, we've been trying to find out when we can be scheduling debriefs, and we've heard from our local coordinator that they might be starting to do those for late September, early October. So as soon as we hear back on those, we'll try to get in queue and get some answers on those pretty soon as well. And then I know we're going to talk about the other status of other loans and the race grant in a little bit, so I'll leave that for the more detailed updates later. That's all I had.
Thanks. The legal report is
Judy on there.
Judy.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
There's nothing new to report on behalf of Dakotas this month, and Mark hasn't reported any new updates as well. But since Mark and I will be now alternating meetings, he will be covering the second meeting of the month, and he may have an update at that time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for that. Government relations is online.
Yeah, where's Dan?
It's in DC too.
Oh, they're all in DC.
Oh, Dan. Oh, there's Jim though.
Yeah. Jim.
Hey guys, I have Brian here too, with me. Yeah, I mean, they're just coming back, from the long August recess. Focus is going to be on getting the government funded while they're here. As you guys well aware, we got your delegation here in town this week, meeting with every member of the delegation on both sides of the river, starting tomorrow morning with Senator Cantwell and her team, and then also meeting with the White House's infrastructure the assistant to the president for infrastructure, just to, talk through status of the project, thank them for the grants, and just, see if there's opportunity for them to help us try to push through some of the permit issues as we move forward and get the draft EIS in place. So, or the ROD, sorry, in place. So, hopeful we'll have a good productive week and get that, teed up for the meetings we're going to try to do later once we have updated cost estimates and everything in place for later this year. But now we got a full schedule for 2 days, running hard the whole time.
Yeah, I understand that Mike Fox wanted you to do extra laps around the Capitol Hill. So you can arrange that, right?
Oh yeah, we could do it. And then the weather's nice, so they picked a good week. It's the weather cooled off this over the last week, and it's really nice out now. So we could get a couple laps in.
Excellent.
Ryan does a nice job on our team trying to stack the meetings so we don't have to run back and forth too much. But yeah, no, it should be a good week. We get all the meetings we were hoping to get, and the DOT, they're putting the right folks in the room, to kind of that we need to update, and the folks we need to see, FHWA, the Build America Bureau. So hopefully they should be productive meetings.
Jim, if you're finished with your update, this is Chad Schuster. I know both Brad and I don't think Maddie's here either are able to make it, but I can provide an update on the Washington and Oregon side, since both Dan and Mike, I think, are in the air. So we've been doing a series of project briefings with relevant legislators in Oregon. I think we're about halfway through those. Those are going well. We've also been meeting with Washington candidates that are relevant to the project. Same thing, progress is going well with those meetings. We're still trying to get a few more of those scheduled, but those will continue over the next several weeks. On Friday, coming Friday the 13th, the Oregon Joint Committee on Transportation has its roundtable stop coming to the Dalles, and we will have, I know Commissioner Babbitts is there in the room. Commissioner Babbitts will be there along with Commissioner Keithler, and Mike Shannon will be there as well to participate in that roundtable and talk a little bit about the project. There's also a public comment session later in the evening that we're trying to get folks to participate in. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, we've been trying to find a date for a bi-state briefing with Oregon and Washington legislators, and we did just hear from Representative Fai's office that looks like October 1st that will be happening. We're still trying to determine whether it's going to happen in Portland or Vancouver, but hoping to get some good turnout from both the Washington and Oregon sides at that meeting. I think those are the main things on the GR side.
I'll be at that roundtable in the Dalles as well.
Were you there for the city?
Yeah, great. There'll be quite a few of us.
Jennifer, you will be there for the county. Yep.
Yeah. All right, thanks. There any partner updates from FHWA, ODOT, WADOT? Anybody else? Nobody, thanks. All right, move forward. Open action. Do we have any open action items?
We do not.
Oh, okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. There are invoices. Have you guys had a chance to look through them? If anybody would like to make a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the invoices as presented.
I can second that.
Motion second to approve the invoices. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Committee reports. First one is myself. Yeah. So, yeah. Tell you guys last time we're up to 2 meetings a month because we have a lot of heavy lifting going on with all of that. We had some of the issues we touched on earlier. Reddy talked about reaching agreement with federal partners in terms of tapering our federal sources, which is a huge deal in terms of cash flow going forward.
Can you explain a little more what that means? Because
Yeah,
I
tapering.
don't really know the term.
So in order to fund the project throughout the course of the project, we need to have all of our funding sources. We need to have particular ratios. We can only use 80%,
Right.
for example, in federal funds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes you need to have that particular percentage every month or for every element of a particular set over time.
Right.
What tapering allows us to do is use one pot of money, for example, in a particular month. Like 1 month we can use 100% Fed or 100% local or whatever it is, as long as later on or a different month we use a different set of money or a different pot of money. So over the span of the project, it comes out to the correct ratios that we need to meet. So it allows us to be far more flexible with how we meet our cash flow needs without meeting the exact ratios of each fund every single month.
And over what period are they going to measure it? Okay, is there some point at which they'll say no more use of infra until you kick in a little bit more? Oh,
Carrie can answer that question if he raises his hand for that. You're on mute, Carrie.
Of course I am. Because we always start on mute until somebody tells us that we're muted. The way it works is that we have to actually submit to them a tapering schedule that shows them what money we intend to spend first, second, third, et cetera. And of course, that's subject to change as time goes on, as other funding sources become available. But we have projected and sent them a 5-year tapering schedule. So the operational period for these grants is 5 years. The money has to be obligated by 2026. It has to be used by 2031. And we have shown them, and I don't have it on the top of my head, but we have shown them a chart year by year showing where the various funding will come from. And just to elaborate a little bit on what Commissioner Paulson was saying, the terms of the infra agreement, our infra is a 60% grant. So they will pay 60% of the costs incurred, the eligible costs incurred in any given month. Another 20% can come from other federal sources. So for instance, our build grant or any other federal sources. And then 20% has to come from pure local funds, meaning state or local origin. And so we have put together based on our projections of when the state money will become available, we've put together a projection that shows us spending probably an overabundance of funds early on in the project, but then once the state funds become available, kind of restoring that balance a little bit later in the project. If I could, maybe I'll just outline a little bit where we are with infra in some detail. I'm going to try to condense our 2-hour funding and finance meeting into about 2 minutes, but we've requested 4 things from the infra team, the Federal Highway Administration infra team. One is tapered match, and that has been approved. We have received written approval, and that will go into our grant agreement. That's a big deal, and it's worth commenting on. Another thing that we have requested is what's called prior authorization. And basically what prior authorization is it allows you to spend money today before there's a grant agreement in place and count that money as if the grant agreement were in place retroactively once the grant agreement's signed. We've asked for 2 forms of prior authorization. One is to say that local money that we're spending today, we would like to, and other federal money that we're spending today, we would like to count as a match against the infra funds once the infra grant is approved. And that particular provision has been approved as well. So the money that we are spending today, the other federal funds and the local money that we're spending today, will be able to be counted as a match once the infra grant is online. The second form of prior authorization that we've requested would actually allow us not just to count the money we're spending today as a match, but to actually seek reimbursement for that money. And that one has not been approved yet, but I'm hopeful that it will be. We're not seeing any objections. It's just making its way through the bureaucratic process. The fourth one is a little more difficult, but potentially more important. And that is, we're working on this concept that we have termed progressive obligation, which basically says that the infra people have expressed an interest in obligating all 200 million of the money in one agreement very soon. And quite frankly, our match schedules and our local funding is not in place enough to satisfy that. And so what we're asking them to do is to obligate the infra grant progressively as the project goes along. We're asking for $75 million right now, and that's money for which we do have match. We're ready to roll with 75 million in infra funds. We're asking that as kind of the first tranche, and then about a year from now or a year and a half from now, before 2025, when we want to let a construction contract, before the end of 2025, we will need to have the other $125 million of infra funding obligated. So we're asking them to do this in steps. This is something that is done with other federal grant programs. The infra people have not said yes yet, but they have not said no either. And they've actually asked us for additional information, which I find encouraging. I think that they're trying to understand the request, and I'm hopeful that that we may get there. The other concept that we talked about at the funding and finance meeting that I think is worth mentioning, and this is one that we have not explored with federal highways yet, but we're learning more about it and learning how it is applied on grants around the country, not necessarily transportation grants, but federal grants, is the idea that it may be possible to get some advance funding. And it's probably as soon as the grant agreement is signed, but as soon as the grant agreement is signed, we're going to try to have an advance of about $20 million that becomes liquid cash and allows us to, it provides us with some of the liquidity we need. It doesn't provide us all of it because of the matching requirements, et cetera, but it will provide us significant liquidity. And we're aware of other projects where the feds have recognized a lack of liquidity early in the project and have been willing to advance funds. So that's one that we're preparing our opening arguments on that particular one. Other important news from the Finance Committee, and Commissioner Paulson, tell me if I'm stealing your thunder here. Right. The Oregon Infrastructure Bank loan has been approved, so that cash should be available to us very, very soon if it's not already. That's a good deal. I think Debbie can probably talk to the details of that if you have questions. We are still working on a line of credit instrument with Hood River County, and are preparing, I think, for a meeting of the financial and legal professionals from both the county and the authority to hammer out some of the remaining details on that. I just want to remind everybody that we do have a traffic and revenue study that is now underway. We have signed a contract with CDM Smith, and we are now working on the modeling of those initial baseline toll scenarios that we talked about last month at our meeting. We are proceeding to work with the Build America Bureau on TIFIA funding. We have received word from the Bureau that they need to see the investment grade traffic and revenue study completed before we can take the next really substantial step in the creditworthiness process for the TIFIA financing. So we're working on that. And finally, I would wrap up by saying one of the things that we're starting to take a look at and hoping to be in a position to come back to you in about October with a report and maybe even some recommendations is on the subject of how the bridge authority will handle revenue collection once the new bridge opens, i.e., what kind of toll system will we install, who will own and operate that toll system, who will own and operate the back office that will process transactions, et cetera. You have a number of options, and we want to make sure that you understand all the options, the pros and cons of each, and the costs of each, and then can make a decision and issue some direction to staff on the way you want to go. So that was a 2-hour funding financing meeting in more than 2 minutes, 7 minutes.
There was more as well, but yes, in a nutshell. Yeah, Arthur.
So, Carrie, this concept of progressive obligation, I certainly understand why you're interested in it. Isn't there a flip side that this could create a political risk given the current political environment? And I have no problem being blunt. My fear is we have election and we could have people trying to claw back anything that has been grants like this that have been awarded but not obligated yet. So isn't having the money obligated better than having it not obligated?
I think that certainly is a risk, and we want to huddle with our GR people and make sure we fully understand that. The reason that we're pursuing progressive obligation is because of a provision in the DOT funding agreements that basically say we're not going to obligate this money until you can show us that your match is in the bank. And right now, we only have enough match in the bank for the first $75 million tranche. Now, it also is important to note that that 75 million is what it's going to take with the match. That 75 million plus the match that goes with it is what it's going to take to get us through final design. So it gets us right up to that point where there's a logical next step in the project process. The ideal situation would be to have Oregon and Washington come forth very quickly with the remaining part of their funding obligation, and that would solve all of our problems. But I'm not hopeful that's going to happen in the time frame that we need to get the infra money flowing.
Leaves me uncomfortable.
You're not wrong, but
Right. And this is, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, that I am concerned that even though people say it would be unprecedented for monies that have been awarded but not obligated to be clawed back, no one's told me it's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're 2 months away from
So you're going to solve the
finding out the
problem before
results.
then?
Hopefully we can
Honestly,
on the agreements by then, but
yeah.
None of this is without a certain level of risk.
Right.
So, and until things change, no choice but move forward to some extent. If things change in the future, we'll have to adjust.
Yeah.
it'll be flexible.
Make
And
decisions.
and you have to be ready when it does happen.
And
So you
until
can't
that
just wait and then.
until that happens, we need to make decisions in the moment. Generally, make decisions in the moment once things change, or plan for if they change.
I got it. I
Yeah.
just wish that we could get the funds obligated now.
We all do. Yeah, if we could get the funds obligated, we wouldn't be having
You would have
the
done.
conversation.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, in a nutshell, that was the funding and finance meeting. We also discussed requirements or steps we may be looking at, and when it comes to once we get really up and going, what we may need to do in order when it comes to auditing or compliance and everything else we need to do in terms of that aspect of things as well. So once we actually are funded and start really getting more into building stuff and doing bigger things, especially the need of audit and compliance will be greatly magnified. So we're starting to prep on some of that as well, addressing some of those needs. Because once we get the money, I expect us to be audited regularly.
Right. We should be. Yeah.
Yeah. So next meeting there is September 19th. Moving on, engineering construction.
Sure, I guess that'll be
Yeah,
me.
that'll be you.
So we spent a great deal of time talking about the cash flow as well and the implications of that, what we do if we don't, what you do if you do, and all the ramifications. I think the kind of takeaway of that is being able to be really clear with legislatures about when we need money and how much we need to keep moving. We also spoke a little bit about decision-making, and as we get asked specific questions regarding just kind of elements of the bridge. And one of the things that we had a pretty good discussion on, I thought, was just having a broader understanding of what a decision means going forward. So if you make a decision that has implications on everything else, and the design team being able to be very clear on, if I make one decision that sounds like a good idea, but I don't understand what all the other ramifications are, then that's not a very beneficial decision. So they are working along on that. The aesthetics memo has been transferred to them. They're getting their head in that and starting to take those recommendations and implement them as well. And then we also talked about the ITS systems and how we dig into those and understand this is tolling, this is monitoring of the bridge, any of the electronics. And I think that there's a lot of detail there, A through J, but the takeaway is it's a relatively simple bridge. We need to do some of the basics to keep people safe and do some observation. And we probably need to provide capacity or the ability in terms of pathway to add elements to it, but probably don't need them right now.
What would be an element that would be added?
Radar for bikes going across, maybe, so that you can time signals or something like that. That seemed kind of beyond what we probably need to.
I was wondering what would be beyond scope, and that's a good example.
There were a whole bunch that were just like, really, you can do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that was the takeaway. Let's keep it simple and provide the ability to add to it in the future.
And so keeping it simple is that you're going to be measuring and counting cars as they go across and recording their passes, recording their licenses, and passing that
For polling
along.
effectively.
Yeah, right.
And then there was some discussion about what sort of infrastructure do you do for pedestrians as they come off the bridge on 14. I think there's less of a discussion as they come off on the Oregon side. There's infrastructure already there that we'll tie into, but 14
Is there
will be
some,
new.
I think we talked about this before, about the desire to have some counting of bikes and peds.
You know, we did not talk about that, but that's a good thing. I'll note that for next time.
I think Nate has his hand up.
I was going to reiterate, I was going to step on Arthur's line that he just mentioned, which is,
Oh, sorry.
we want to make sure that that's part of the potential add-on or the infrastructure for monitoring is being able to monitor ped and bike traffic for any number of reasons, but not having the data is something we're going to wish we had later potentially if we need to toll e-bikes, or if a number of scenarios could arise where we would want to or need to be able to defend a decision based on data, not anecdotal evidence. And if we have the ability to capture how many people are utilizing the bridge in all forms of transport, that seems like we would want to build that in ahead of time.
Yeah, and the example I'll give, rather than talking about possibly tolling, I'd say instead that it puts us in a better position for grant applications concerning how many cars we're keeping off of the highway and that sort of thing. Whatever we can do to develop that data is probably going to be useful.
Yeah. Also, the data with regard to pedestrian or bikes, for example, and how it feeds into the rest of the transportation system in both sides of the river.
Right.
Jake, you did have your hand up earlier. Did you have something as well?
No, I'll save it for later.
Okay.
So, and I think there's one other item that's for discussion later, so we'll just leave that. That's it.
Anything else from the bridge aesthetics, or?
Just that the report is concluded. It's gone to queue it.
Yep.
Can you tell me anything at all about how the bike ped design is being done? Has any expert been called in yet for that, or?
Don't know. There's something being organized for the public towards the end of the month.
Okay, I haven't heard about that. Yep.
just reading about that, I'm just wondering, okay, so what's going on there? How does that happen?
So I can
I
speak
can
to that a
jump
little
on that.
bit.
I can jump
Sorry.
on that really quick regarding the bike
There's-
path and pedestrian path. We
Yeah.
just got the final version of the RAISE grant. So DOT has this grant for bike path and pedestrian path design grant, and we applied for $3.6 million, and we just got it, and it's one of the agenda item to get the concurrence of the board. But this will help to advance the bike path and the pedestrian path design up to 60%, and then it includes the coordination and collaboration with 3 local cities: City of Engine and City of White Salmon and City of Hood River, and we are preparing the intergovernmental agreement for their review and then their input for the design progress. So we are hoping to get that done sometime in October, so that all this effort to incorporate bike path into the final design moving forward. Thank you.
Ready, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I didn't see Katie on my screen here. The camera cuts off over there. So, but yeah, the same thing.
Yeah, thanks.
You got Jake. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and Jake,
Yeah, so at the Huckleberry Fest, JLA was mentioning to folks that right now it's looking at like there's going to be a dedicated bike lane each way and a separate pedestrian path, and that was raising a lot of questions for folks as to how that would work, especially if someone were, say, on a bike and wanted to go utilize the bump out. How would that work if you're going to have separated pathways? So I don't know if we're planning on having some sort of visual rendition of what this is going to look like, or at least explain to people what sort of material is going to be used to define these different lanes.
Yes, we are preparing some kind of exhibits actually to show at the meeting on the 24th. The shared use path itself will be mixed with the pedestrians and bike users will be in the same area. It'll just be separated by a pavement marking. So they can interact and stop at the bump outs, etc. as needed. They're not going to be physically separated. Hope that answers your question.
and Anna,
Yeah, I think well, that's a little bit different than what my understanding was. So, I mean, maybe we need to make sure we're very clear about that. As far as when we say a defined pathway, you know, in a lot of people's minds, they say, okay, that means some sort of physical structure separating those. So I think as long as we're very clear to the public about what we mean when we say pathways going forward, I think we'll be okay.
I don't think we know yet, do we?
Yeah, I think that's the confusion, is that's what the RAISE grant is really intended to do, is help us flush that all out.
Right.
And actually define what it is. We know there's a multi-use path. But beyond that, we're all just speculating.
Yeah. So we have a presentation prepared by the program manager for RAISE grant on 23rd of September. That's the board meeting here, and there's a public meeting scheduled in the evening of the next day, September 24th. But then this pedestrian path and the bike path design is work in progress, and that this grant will help focus on the improving the access and then the safety of the pedestrian and the bicycle users.
Anna, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you. I am so sorry for the confusion about the 24th, but we have actually decided to cancel that open house. And I'm sorry, I know, Reddy, this is the first time you're hearing about this, but we just wanted to make sure we cleared it with Mike Shannon and Marla before before communicating to anybody else. And so this all kind of happened late last week and even I think into today. So apologize for everyone just hearing about this for the first time. But we were going through the different things we were going to present to the public, including the number and placement of the pedestrian overlooks, the barrier types, and we realized that there just wasn't, we just weren't in a place where we had enough information to present to the public, to ask them, what they would prefer. And so we were kind of left with like, okay, well, if we can't present these things and ask people which ones, they would prefer, we're really just presenting out information and not asking for much feedback. And when you call something an open house, people really have the expectation that they are going to be able to give a lot of feedback. And so we thought that we hadn't really publicized the September 24th event very much yet. And so what we have decided to do with Mike Shannon and Marla's blessing has kind of just changed the focus of that a little bit and make that instead of having one in-person open house, what we're going to do is do a really big push online with sharing these new renderings. And so we have a really great rendering that shows the different those delineated bike lines and pedestrian lanes. And so and renderings of the new bridge type, the steel girder plate bridge type that people haven't really seen yet. And so our plan is to just, say, hey, we have all these new renderings. Here's all like a bunch of new information we have to share about the bridge type, the pedestrian lanes, the width of the vehicle lanes, lighting information. And so do more of a share out and a design update, and then kind of ask people like, do you have any concerns? So more of a single question. Hey, do you have any concerns about this information? But really push it out online. And then also do 2 pop-up events where people can come and talk to folks and ask questions if they have them, but much less formal than the open house we had originally planned on that September 24th day. And so more of like, we're hoping to do 2 events, one event in Hood River, like maybe a morning event in Hood River, late September, and an evening event in White Salmon, early October. And more of a just, hey, come by, members of the public can come by and chat to project staff and commissioners if they have any questions, but much less of a formal, oh, we're going to have boards set up with all this information, and more of just like, hey, come by if you have questions. So again, sorry for any confusion. Sorry for the last minute change of plans there, but happy to answer any questions anybody has about that.
Eric, can you remind me, what is the lane profile now? It's 12-foot travel lanes, 2 of them.
2 4-foot breakdown lanes.
So 2 4-foot, okay.
10 feet on the bike and 8 feet on the ped.
Okay. 18 feet total for the bike and ped combined. Yeah, I guess I'm always amazed at these events where people would actually come and think that no one thought of the idea that someone riding a bike might want to go over and look at the overlook.
Yeah, well, I think part of the problem again is we're all kind of talking, everybody's got their own idea of what it may or could or should be, and we don't have any plans yet. We're just not that far along. So being able to solicit some information, get people's impressions, and start to, I think it's a little bit like the aesthetics, is the public conversation, so everybody has a common frame of reference is the first step. So, and I think we'll need some more participation with our design team as well as we get into some of that.
Yeah, if I were to speculate, I would guess that's the breakdown in between us committing to the spaces of the pedestrians and bike lanes just in form of these things existing versus how they're going to be designed, and the decision in between the spaces existing versus how they will be designed is the disconnect that people haven't, the decisions that we haven't made, and people are jumping to those conclusions without us having made those decisions yet.
It's the way I think about it is we're developing a space budget, and then we're turning it over to experts to ask them using best practices how would you most effectively utilize that?
Yep.
And fundamental things like that, someone might change from being a biker to wanting to look over the overlook. In fact, someone might actually turn around on the bridge and not keep going straight. And oh my God, did you think that could someone get out of the bike lane to go the other direction?
Might get a flat tire.
You might get a flat tire, right? Yeah.
All kinds of things might happen.
So it would be nice if people would actually give us a little bit of credit, but
No credit.
no credit.
No,
Zero. Okay.
You know better.
I'm just,
It's better to be underestimated than
Yeah.
overestimated.
So I think that's the disconnect is it's assumptions that drive ahead of where we're at right now. When we still have those decisions to make. There are certain assumptions that people might just naturally jump to in their minds. Because people are people.
and it doesn't want me at these sessions because I'm the one who's going to be sitting there and saying, gee, we never would have thought of that. Okay. You hear that, Anna? Don't invite me.
Jake, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to vocabulary. So when you say words like delineated or dedicated, that puts a perspective in people's minds. So perhaps maybe we could come up with some words, phrases that keep things neutral and at least don't put people down a pathway of what they think something's going to be. Because I think, especially when you say a dedicated bike lane, I think a lot of what I was hearing from people is thinking, oh, this is going to be a protected lane that's divided from a pedestrian lane. And so maybe there's a better word or better couple of words to use until we've nailed down what the design is going to be.
Yeah, so like I said, the raise grant had some good language to devote to that dedicated lane as to access to the bridge by bicyclists or pedestrian. So safe and improved access to the bridge. Because it's not only the bridge, it's surrounding area
too, and
right.
Right, which is a fascinating part of the problem. You dump people right you dump people into traffic basically at both ends.
Right.
Obviously, there has to be a little bit more thought than doing that.
Yeah.
So,
I think using the access to the bridge might be the better words than dedicated lane or some other.
I mean, yeah, that's more engineering speak, I guess, but we need to probably, that's why folks from, JLA are here to help us translate that into more, people-friendly language other than just being engineers.
We can translate engineering into English.
Yeah.
We'll crack a thesaurus and figure out what would be best.
there aren't going to be cars on this part.
Right, no cars on the ped bike section, yes.
So just to wrap up this bike lane stuff, we had scheduled the presentation, what this raise grant scope is on September 23rd, anticipating that there is another meeting or public meeting the next day. Should we postpone that scope presentation along with
we should do that scope
I'd like to do
presentation
that.
so that we
have a good
continue to
understanding what.
understand the issues.
Right, okay,
Yeah, for us, it's
Yeah.
fine.
okay, so we'll keep going.
We can keep it on our schedule.
Okay.
Yep.
And by the way, I think Jake is obviously right on his comment about the way you say things, and therefore I think that Anna should be tapping him for these meetings instead of me.
Moved and seconded unanimously in favor. Oh, where are we? Were you at government?
Yes, governance.
Speaking of,
No report.
nothing from
When's
me.
my first meeting? So yeah, the reason is because I wasn't at the last meeting. It was
Oh, it was
Jake at the last meeting. Yeah. So, I do not have a report, and Jake isn't here to tell us what he did. Sorry about that.
We'll table it until next time.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that rises to this group.
Sure.
It's just bookkeeping right now.
All right. New business. Actually, happens to the raised grant agreement. Yep, it is there.
So if we get approval to proceed and send it back to the FHWA, we're hoping that this got fully executed by September 15th. They requested by that, so.
You guys read through.
And so we can authorize
Yeah.
that, and we authorize the chair to sign it, or I forget who.
Co-chair.
Oh, co-chair.
Co-chairs.
Yep, so we would need a motion to approve co-chair to sign the raised grant agreement.
I would make that motion.
I would second that.
So moved and seconded to approve co-chair Jacob Anderson to sign the raised grant agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next up is,
Signer of permits.
yep, delegate Catherine Thomas as a signer for permits.
And does she know this?
She's gonna find out.
She volunteered.
Voluntold.
As long as she knows about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I would
Yeah,
make a motion that Commissioner Thomas be given signing authority for project permits.
I will second that.
The motion to approve Commissioner Thomas for signing authority for project permits. For the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. All right. Next up
Risk register.
is informational items, register.
I think it's actually attached there.
Yeah, it's included in the packet.
Yeah, all the informational items are in your packet. Any questions on any of those? Or anything you would like to talk about with any of them?
I think the lack of funding should be at the top of the list, but I won't quibble about it.
Yes, you will. We'll quibble about that every meeting.
The recusal policy, we're just waiting, I think, the way I'm reading this, we're just waiting for FHWA to approve the policy that we put forward.
Yep.
And do we know how long it takes them to review that?
Well, we were hoping that we got the answer last time. We were going to meet with them last week, but the meeting was canceled due to the tons of people at the Salem office got sick. So we are still waiting for the reschedule. So
yes.
Any other questions about the info items? All right.
Nope.
Upcoming list of upcoming action items are there. Any questions?
I'm sorry, let me just back up. The additional toll revenue July, what was that?
Debbie would be the best person to answer that question.
Debbie's still there?
He is.
I am. I'm frantically trying to find my unmute button. And I'm sorry because I don't know what the upcoming action items. Okay, you guys skipped over the informational. You guys were all good with all that.
We were just that's what we were talking about just now.
Yeah, item 4 in the informational says additional toll revenue July.
Oh, yes. So that's in your report. That's the one that I normally do. Sorry, you guys got to it sooner than I thought. And so there's a memo, and then I always include the schedule that shows the amount that was collected for, and it's actually August, and I apologize to everybody because you got July's already. I really try to have them done by your first meeting of the month, and this one was a little bit of a scramble because of the Labor Day holiday, and so, but I did get it done. I just didn't update everything to say August as it correctly should have said. So the revenue is still coming in, even when you isolate August, it's coming in a little bit lower than expected. And so we're still okay because we had anticipated collecting more than what we were going to need for reserves. But I do think, a really good time to stop and revisit all of this and see where we really think we're gonna be is when we get to December and we get an updated estimate on the bridge, because the cost. Because I think at that point, I mean, no matter where it comes in, it won't come in at 520, right? It'll be higher or hopefully lower, but probably not lower. But at that point, we're going to need to stop and look at our funding and finance plan anyway. And so I think that's a really good time to take a look at this and see if we think that there's, if we should be concerned about it, or if we think we're going to be okay in the long run. So it's still coming in lower than expected. And so, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that it's coming in a little lower than forecast. So other than that, you have, I think, 3.7, well, there's 3.5 million, I think, shows in the LGIP, which is the additional toll revenue to date. Nope, sorry, 3.3. But then or almost 3.4. And then I transferred the amount as soon as I had calculated it, transferred it into the LGIP. So you have about 3.7 million sitting in there right now. And your $100 bank account, which hopefully as we continue on with the Hood River loan, the Hood River County loan, and working on some of these other options, hopefully we'll get some money in there soon to start paying these invoices as they come up. And with that, I think Jake has his hand up.
Yep. So, Jake.
Yeah, so I had a question about the Umpqua Bake statement. So the service charge, is that going to be monthly service charge, or is that like a one-time fee?
No, that is a regular service charge that they charge. The direct connect is because we have it connected to QuickBooks to automatically download and upload transactions. And then the regular service fee is $12.50. I mean, eventually, when there's more transactions, it will even go up. I mean, the Port of Hood River right now pays about $450 a month in fees, and that's not uncommon. That's pretty standard.
So we're gonna $12.50 per month for a service charge fee. So we're gonna be out of money here in about a month and a half to less than 2 months. So do we need to transfer some money? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong number, but I think we still need to be watching our balance if we're being charged $27 a month on fees, and right now we're at $87.50, I guess.
Right, and we do monitor that because that money, just to get your bank account started, I posted that against the Port of Hood River is doing a $500,000 loan for your non-reimbursable expenses. And so I've posted it against that, and we'll continue to make sure that there's money in there and make sure that all of the invoices get paid as, so right now, I know that it's always confusing because the focus always is on the project, right? That we have this project, but also right now, the Port of Hood River is still in charge of I don't want to say in charge, but the grants right now that we're getting reimbursed from are still in the Port of Hood River's name. So the Port of Hood River continues to pay everything that's going out. That's going to come to an end really soon because it's just the ARPA money that the port had received, and then the first $5 million agreement with WashDOT. Those were still in the port's name, and so that money is getting spent down very rapidly now. And so within the next month or so, it's going to switch over to being the bridge authority's invoices directly that they'll have to pay out, and it'll need to go through this bank account. And so we're really watching that closely and making sure that that has money in it, and that hopefully, again, we can get this cash flow going that we're going to need with the Hood River County loan, and then hopefully with some other money coming in as well. So we're watching that.
One final question. I'm volunteering with the Political Action Committee, and we have an account with Key Bank, and they were charging us monthly fees, and we just simply asked if they wouldn't, and they agreed to, and they actually gave us a bunch of money back for prior months. is there any, do you see any, what do you think about asking Umpqua Bank to say, can we waive these fees or waive the $12.50 per month maintenance fee?
Yeah, I can ask them. There's laws in the state of Oregon that make him very hesitant to do that for local governments because, for example, when you do, say that you do get the $10 million loan from Hood River County and we put $10 million into that bank account, it actually under state law is guaranteed because you're a local government. And so it has guarantees on it that they don't provide to any other kind of entity. And they're required to do that under state law. So they do tend to not want to waive fees for local governments, but I can ask the branch manager because I know he's very involved in the community and that he, has been open to trying to help us out wherever he can. So I will talk to him about those and see if we can get some of them waived at least to maybe get some money back. But very soon you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have basically, they're going to have to hold collateral in the form of federal like treasury bonds and things like that. They're going to have to hold that for a large percentage of your deposits when they get into the millions of dollars, and that costs them money. So they're usually not in a big hurry to waive fees for local governments.
What I can add, Jake, I'm treasurer for 3 different organizations, both political and not-for-profit, and I've been able to get the same deal, but it's basically they're doing it as a community benefit sort of thing. They're doing it as a favor to the community. This is kind of where they make their money as opposed to doing us a favor.
But I'm more than willing to ask. I mean, it never hurts to ask, right? All they can do is say no. And so I will definitely ask.
Deb, I have one question just about the toll numbers not matching kind of our projections initially. And it occurs to me that there's 3 ways that those could be off. One, I think the obvious one is that the bridge has been closed periodically because it's continuing to deteriorate. And in that scenario, I think going forward, we would not expect that number to change. It may even get worse. The other is that coming out of COVID, perhaps people are just not traveling quite as much as they used to. Is that a contributing factor? And then I guess the last one is just, were we too optimistic when we made the assumptions? And I guess what I'm getting at is when we start to kind of reevaluate that, if we could determine what are the factors, and it's probably, I'm sure it's a little bit of all 3 of those maybe.
Exactly.
But is there a way we could analyze that a little bit and understand better what the influences are? The bridge closures are the obvious ones. That's pretty easy to see and make a direct correlation. But is there a traffic pattern change, or did we just, were we a few tenths high on the number that we used on projections?
I think it could be a little of everything. We've had both. So on the bridge closures, I hope that we can minimize that. Of course, I mean, obviously we're always hoping that. The welding that they had to do was a bit more extensive, and it was because part of it, and if Commissioner Fox was here, he could explain this completely, but basically about 1.5 years ago, they raised the weight limit. There was a lot of pushback from trucks, understandably, I mean, understandable pushback. And so they raised the weight limit to allow bigger trucks to go across. In that year that was raised, we saw significant damage to the deck. And so there was additional welding that needed to be done. And when that was realized that it was doing additional damage to the deck, they lowered the weight limit back down. So I'm hopeful that going forward, the welding won't be as extensive as it had to be this last year. But again, who knows? As you noted, the bridge is getting old and things happen. The other thing that obviously contributed significantly to this was June and July, when the truck hit the excavator arm, hit the beams up above the lift span. again, that was a one-off, at least at this point. We hadn't really, I mean, we've had some minor incidents before, but once every 5 or so years. And so if the statistics hold up, maybe we won't have another one of those. But again, we could have one every year for the next 5 years, who knows? Because those are always, you know, who knows? And then as far as the traffic is down, and that's what Grant had been saying also, they're noticing that in just the tourism industry in general, that traffic is down this summer. Now, whether that's, you know, people obviously changed with COVID, you know, COVID impacted everybody as far as like, you know, whether some people were just couldn't wait to get out after that. Other people like don't really like to be out in public that much anymore since then. So it had some different impacts, and we don't know if that's more of a permanent change or if that's a temporary change, but certainly there is certainly part of the traffic and revenues study is going to be some, you know, looking at some of those kinds of things. Is that some of what we're looking at? Because they're going to be tasked with looking at that and saying, okay, given the traffic levels that we're seeing right now, is that going to project forward? Or can we, you know, they had projected in the planning TNR study about a 1% increase, and that's what we used in our forecast. But maybe that is too high. I don't know. That again, we will be certainly looking at all of that.
If I could just say that the detailed analysis that you're referring to is really the meat and potatoes of the TNR study that's just getting underway. And you know, part of that study is an independent economic analysis, which is really going to look at a lot of the underlying factors in the economy of the area of influence of the bridge, which is, you know, not just Hood River and Klickitat counties, but the whole region. Looking at expert looks at trends and predictions for the economy over the next 30 years. And that is really what this firm CDM Smith does. And it will be a very, very detailed analysis because investors, or in this case, lenders, rely on their analysis to price bonds or to approve loans, et cetera. So over the next 9 months, you can expect to see very, very detailed analysis of exactly the kinds of factors that you were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Grant, you've seen in the hospitality industry, you've seen something of a downturn, right?
Yep.
Do you have a way to separate how much of that is tourism versus business travel?
Yes.
Would you? Let me state a theory, and then you can tell me if the data backs it up or not.
Yeah.
I have personally seen a major industrial components of our economy are slowing down now. And that to me means that there are fewer of their employees traveling back and forth across the bridge 5 times a day, as well as fewer visitors staying in hotels and doing business with them. So I think that I've seen something of a regional softening in the economy, and that could be cyclical, or that could be the result of what we warned for years, which is the lack of housing means that it's harder for companies to do business here. So comments on any of that?
Yeah, it could be both. Part of it could be housing. Part of it's just the cyclical nature of everything whipsawing back and forth as things sort of normalize out a little bit. There's definitely less commercial and contract business here now than just the last few years, of course. Even compared to years past, there's less projects and business travelers and that sort of thing going on now compared to a more normalized rate. And so that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is the tourism market overall is different now than it was in the past. There's less volume of tourism now, but there's still a good amount of it. Right. It's a different kind of market. So there's still a good amount, and they're still spending money, but it's it's less a volume game at this point.
Right.
But that may change again, and the region may shift back into attracting a volume tourism industry, but it's not doing that right now. So you're not going to see the volume numbers that you've seen in the past, but it'll still be a stronger industry, but not in terms of just volume. Does that make sense?
Right, well, I know that the number of overnight stays has been down, but the
Yes.
revenue has been stable or up.
Yep.
Right? So is that the translation of what you're saying?
Depending on the month and what's going on, yes.
Okay, so it could be that we did a bunch of estimates in a period that was relatively superheated and things are returning to somewhat
Yes.
normal, or it could be that things are slumping and we're seeing signs of slumping.
Demand is softer than it used to be. Right now, it's a more bifurcated market. In that you have some sectors, some segments that there's still some demand there, but there are some places that it's definitely a lot weaker. Over the winter, for example, it was a very soft market, similar in terms of demand softening to 2007, 8, that sort of demand level.
Right.
It was straight down. So it's the game of forecasting demand is far more challenging now than it was in the past. And I wouldn't necessarily forecast a super rosy outlook. It's not like all doom and gloom.
Right.
But it's the tourism industry, which is a component of our bridge traffic, is less stable than it used to be.
When the TNR folks do this, they're going to be, I mean, obviously they're not rooting for us. They're not going to be inflating numbers. They're going to be conservative and they're going to be looking at what all the risks are.
Yep.
And so but there's nothing that I'm seeing that shocks me or terrifies me. It's that we're seeing,
and
percentage groups. We're not seeing demand disappearing.
Yeah, no, and demand's not going to drop straight off. It's not going to be anything like that unless we industry-wide do something amazingly stupid, which we're not planning on doing.
Installing the radioactive fountain downtown.
Yeah, the Aquatic Justice Center. No. So if that should happen, and we've weathered these sort of storms in the past, we can shift models back into more of a volume-based offering. There's pros and cons to that sort of thing, but those are all options we can do. It just takes time, effort, and money to make those sort of shifts, and it's on a time scale that we won't be forecasting or having control over or really see in our work. It's a more of a multi-year effort. So that sort of shift will take place over the course of time, about as long as it would take to build this bridge. So to shift that entire industry over and turn it over in terms of a functioning industry model. In the meantime, you'll have hotels be built or go through bankruptcy or whatever.
Right. So I'm not going to worry myself about Debbie's reports showing a little down, a little up, whatever. The TNR folks are going to do their work and they're going to come back to us, and that's when we're going to have something that we can quote unquote take to the bank.
Yeah. I personally am just concerned about the margin, but yes.
Because you're going to have to
out years.
You're a couple of percent down, and so
compounding of a couple percent over time.
I got it. Yeah.
Yep.
But they'll do the job.
Hopefully that's enough of background for everybody.
Yeah, no, it is for me.
All right. Okay, that's it for the informational items. Upcoming action items are listed there. We have the raise grant scope presentation next time. We didn't provide any directives or anything important. That's cool.
So I'm just sketching up here. Okay.
Yep. On Sunday, the 15th of November, there's El Grito. Wish to go to that. And then the Bridge Centennial, and Arthur's going to bring his Model T on October 6th.
October 6th, unless it rains.
And I'm not the
It's
only
not
one
waterproof.
attending. You know, my name is the only one there. I'm not the only one attending, so
You're just the one in charge.
I'm great.
Jake has his hand up again.
In that case, I'm not attending.
No, in fact, I'm supposed to be speaking.
Yeah. Jake,
Yeah, so just about the upcoming community events. I attended the one on Friday, the first Fridays, and on Saturday at the Huckleberry Fest. Really got a lot of added a lot of people to our email notification list. And I have a couple other bullet points if you guys wanted to hear like my overall thoughts, but the point I was going to make was we talked earlier about having new renderings, visuals of the new changes, recent changes to the bridge. I'm wondering if those are going to be available specifically for the centennial celebration. Still, people find the visuals easy to understand, very explanatory on where we're at, what the bridge is going to look like. One of the things was, the Washington side, the roundabout is a little bit uncertain if that's still going to happen. How are we still going to emphasize that going forward? So I guess I just wanted to see how the group felt about making sure that new visual aids are going to be available to the community, and whether or not those are going to be available in upcoming events.
I would believe that as soon as we make those decisions and move forward with them and say, these are the decisions we made and have them rendered, we'd put them out.
Yeah, part of the problem I have is when we've had renderings before we had design.
Yeah.
And so
We're
maybe
still on
Eric,
that
you're the expert on this. What's your advice on how aggressive you get in graphic representations?
My personal thing is a diagram until you have a design is a better approach. This is how it might look, and this is how it might work. This is what we're trying to achieve, what it looks like until you have something that just get people talking about things that aren't decided, and all of a sudden it's absolute, and then someone, well, what happened to that?
What I like getting people to talk about is things that they can understand that are real. So for example, showing someone the current bridge has 18 or 19 piers, and because of the materials we're using, we can do this in 8 or 9 piers. Here's what a sketch.
9 or 10.
What's that?
9 or 10.
Okay, I have number up 9 or 10. Okay. Okay.
We're all optimistic.
About
9 or 10, 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Right. Which is,
Less. Fewer.
Yeah, so you can help people appreciate that, and you can talk about the lane budget, right? The 12-foot lanes, and compare it to the current 2.5-foot lanes. No, whatever they are, it's 8 foot, 10 inches or something crazy. So you can compare those. You can show stuff like that. You can show 0 for the current bike ped, and you can show 18 feet divided in some way that's a little unclear right now. Like you show what you actually know, but you don't show what you don't know.
Yeah.
You
and if you can show it in a diagram versus a image, I think that limits the awkward discussions later.
Right.
But
and that's why I was careful with everything I said. Yeah, everything I said was things that could be done in little diagrams like that, as opposed to here's an artist rendering. And my immediate response on the last artist rendering was that they were using sharrows to indicate the bike lanes. It's like, well, that just tells me that the person who did the rendering doesn't know what a sharrow is, because that would indicate there's going to be cars driving in the bike lane, which is probably not true. So, I think we can definitely get out over our skis if we do the renderings. I like diagrams.
The question is are there going to be graphics to support that? I think. And I don't know.
And Anna can probably answer that question for us.
Yeah, hi everyone. Jake, thank you so much for the question. I have gone over. So we got a bunch of new renderings. I think you guys have seen them. like it's been a few weeks now. And so I went through each of them with Mike Shannon. And he identified, which ones would be, he thought would be acceptable to show to the public, with the caveat and kind of the asterisk on each of these of like, hey, this is a conceptual design. This isn't final design, it's a concept. And so our plan is on, on September 24th, instead of having that in-person event, to release all of these images, these renderings that Mike Shannon has given the go-ahead to share with the public. I'm hearing maybe some discomfort from you guys about doing that. And so we can certainly like have a conversation about that if you'd like to kind of change course on that. But where we're at now is we have a bunch of renderings on the website right now, and they're extremely outdated. And so we're hoping that we can replace them with these new renderings that show the new bike lanes, the one, not the ones with the sharrows, Arthur, that you had identified, but the ones with, it does look like the lanes are pretty much delineated. You have separate bike lanes in each direction, and then a separate pedestrian path. And then there's pictures of the new bridge type with that weathered steel, between the struts. So that was our plan. Happy to talk through any changes you guys would want to see to that.
Jake.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I agree. I think my takeaway was that the images that we were providing to the public at the 2 events this weekend were outdated. So if we have newer images to choose from, I think that we should pick something that we all agree is a good representation and use those going forward. Because I think having those visuals and saying, a bunch of caveats and say, well, this is old and it's going to kind of look like this, isn't the best. So if we have something new, I think as a group, we should decide on a new set of images that we bring anytime we're engaging with the public. And that way we have as up to date as we can get.
I guess I have to deal so many times with people saying, this bridge is so ugly. The design is really ugly. And my answer is, the bridge hasn't been designed, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. And I think maybe that's a different side of what I think Jake is kind of saying the same thing in a different way. I think Jake, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jake, but it sounds like you would like pictures that are more accurately reflect the current discussion. But I'm concerned that I would like to be sure that we make it clear that the bridge is currently 0% designed. Or is it some number of 0?
I would say the image right behind Eric is great. Talking about the width
diagram,
the diagram would be perfect. That's a great example of showing people what the new bridge is going to look like as far as spacing between cars and pedestrians. Something like that's great. It doesn't have to be a pretty picture. I think as long as we're giving somebody some sort of visual cue as to what this is going to look like. One of the other things I could think about is bridge height. So something Commissioner Fox was mentioning is that the absolute height or the tallest part of the new bridge is going to be as high as the current lift span structure on the old bridge. Having a visual that sort of shows that would be helpful for folks to visualize how high this new bridge is going to be. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a pretty picture.
And those are all things that we know.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you pointed to the thing behind Eric, but that's actually all wrong. Those are all the old numbers, but yeah, we get what you mean there. So I do like the idea of
updating a diagram like that is something someone can do in a couple of hours. Right. Doing an image like that is something that would take someone a few days. Right. And if you do 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and it just makes someone worry about the sharrow, then the conversation you really want to have is, we started out, when I first started as an authority member, we had a 2-lane bridge with a multi-use path.
Right.
Now we have a 2-lane bridge with a multi-use path, 2 breakdown lanes in the vehicle travel lane, and we've got some sort of division in the multi-use path.
Right.
We have some ideas about the bridge being a new community space and to be something that actually demonstrates that we are one community on both sides of the river. So the discussion we're trying to have is to try to fill in the ideas about what it functionally does beyond just moving cars back and forth. It's just getting more detail there. We just don't have all the pieces or how that manifests itself yet.
Ready.
Kind of echoing what Eric just said, like I can speak from a more engineering side of things. Like, yeah, we've been working on, and actually Q just sent us a couple of renderings today of the cross section. Like I can just show that right now, just for like what we're kind of working on. But again, it's all completely hasn't been reviewed, and we have to still make it more people friendly and all of that. But we are working on those, and as soon as we have more updated stuff, we will start to share. And again, at this point, we are starting in like close to 0% design, right? So it's going to be more based on basic assumptions and more basic. And as we progress and we make decisions on what the community wants to see around this and how we want to shape this, things will get more etched out and fleshed out into like seeing proper images later on. If I can do a quick share, I will just, where is my
sharing enabled?
Right. Yep. I am doing that right now.
Yes, it is.
If you guys can see.
Yeah.
I just got this today. Like, but we were kind of just going back and forth and making some comments on this. It kind of shows how we have the 2 4-foot shoulders, 2 travel lanes separated by a barrier for the non-motor versus motor vehicles. Like bike paths, 10-foot minimum versus the pedestrians. Again, you can kind of see that it's just delineated through pavement marking. You can stop over and at the lookouts, etc. So still working on those details, but this is the old one. This is the new.
Yep.
Yep.
Just need a little bit more width, make the bridge do what we want.
I just like, I like I guess the message I would leave for Anna is, let's focus on telling people things that we actually know.
Yeah.
And obviously people want to know things that we don't know because we want to know those things too. What's the total going to be? When people ask what's the total going to be, we don't tell them a total.
Tell them how much of that.
We say we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. We tell them how we're going to set it. So similarly, do we know what the bridge structure is going to look like? No. So we don't make it up.
Yeah, we have elements and we have some basic information that we can easily communicate to people without necessarily delving into the full, I'll call it the artistic world of full concept art that people objectively, or no, not objectively, subjectively agree or disagree with. So the more we can keep it with the data and the information we have already agreed to without it being a subjective artistic exercise, in my opinion, the better.
We have the aesthetic study, which has reference examples.
Elements.
And so you can show people an image of what other bridges of this structure look like. And then we're not saying this is what our bridge is going to look like, but we're saying this is an example of what our bridge would look like. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you, Anna, I'm going to let you talk, but this is really the same discussion we had about kind of pushing off the second community open house for the BAC. And so I kind of look at it, it's really the same thing. You're trying to share something and get people excited about something, and you don't have that piece to share yet, so. Sorry.
Anna.
Thanks, you guys. So what we had hoped to do with this big share around September 24th was share all these renderings. So now I'm hearing from you guys, please don't share the renderings. But and we're, you know, I hear you wanting to stick with sharing information we know for sure. Like I get where you're coming from. In terms of renderings, we have outdated renderings on the current, you know, on the project website. We have been showing, you know, like Jake pointed out, we're showing this picture of the bridge that's now old and outdated, the bridge concept with that multi-use path. So that's what we've been showing people, and then having to say like, hey, this is wrong. This has been, you know, the plan has evolved. And so my question is, do we go ahead and replace those renderings and share our new renderings, or do we keep using the outdated materials? Because it's really the either or.
No, you want to go ahead?
Anna, you've already had a discussion with Mike about kind of laying this out. We're not here to cut him off at the knees. I just think maybe we oughta, you're kind of about to start on a big effort, and maybe it's worth a little bit more discussion so everybody's aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the renderings that Mike has approved, so I don't even know what you're planning to share. So I'm not saying don't share what you're planning to share. I'm simply expressing that I'm still having to feel the fact that everyone thinks this looks like the Glen Jackson Bridge because there's a rendering that looks like the Glen Jackson Bridge. I-205 bridge, so.
Immaculately beautiful Glen Jackson Bridge. What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
I
I wouldn't want to derail the meeting, but I could go through the renderings that Mike has approved right now if you guys would like to see them. But I want to be respectful of the time.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay, let me, yeah, I think I,
Yeah, and we're not, I don't think we're anti-rendering. This is feedback, and these are things that we field all the time. So it's part of it is us having to go out in the public and say, this is not final design as well. These are conceptual renderings.
Artist conception, yeah.
Yeah, artist conception. And so these are the questions that we always constantly have to answer. So it's just a mindful thing about what we're also putting out. So
totally understand. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you guys see this photo?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So
That's the Glen Jackson Bridge, right?
yes, what Mike had requested
no.
is that we share the evolution of the bike path. And so he wanted us to share this and say, this was the original plan. And now because of your feedback, oh, and of course they're not in the right order, but basically, sorry, so this is what he wanted to show, was like, this was the original, you know, cross-section and multi-use path. And then this is how it has evolved thanks to your, you know, the public's feedback. And so he was wanting to show both of those, to show that evolution.
That's effectively a diagram, so
Yeah, that is effectively a diagram. So that works great.
Yeah.
And with that also, there's some additional words I think that go with that, though, that the narrowing of the breakdown lanes is not just for gaining space for the bike ped, it's also because of concerns about people parking on the bridge. And so this still allows for reconfiguration of travel when there is a breakdown without encouraging parking by having too much space. And it also encourages slower speeds by necking it down a bit. There's a bunch of discussion I think goes with that.
we're not providing any, what was it's intimidation space or there's the barrier.
Yeah, the barrier.
The barrier scare space or whatever it is.
Yeah.
People move away from the barrier, so there's this imaginary 2-foot buffer that allow people to do
shy distance.
The shy distance is
Shy
the
distance,
engineering term.
Shy distance, there we go, thank you.
And that last one you showed is a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, again, that's more of a diagram.
And you got
These
the
are
mountain in
about
there.
this is about as detailed as these get. So, and we always try to be really clear about, you know, putting like a little caption or an asterisk on these that say, you know, design concepts, like these are not finalized designs. Just to make it clear that things can still change, but this is an update and it's a lot more information, you know, than what's on the project website currently. Here is you know, these pictures reflect the new bridge type with that weathered steel.
You had one of those with painted steel too, I noticed.
Did we? Okay. Was it back here maybe?
It's was it closer up?
Down
Is
there.
it that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of steel, they use copper.
Yeah. No, I'm just not.
That one doesn't have the separated bike lanes on.
Well, our plan was to, I don't know if you guys have seen the online open houses we have put together in the past, like for the bridge aesthetics process, but our plan was to put these renderings in sort of a, you know, a scrollable format with captions. And so this would all be vetted by, you know, Mike Shannon and whoever else needs to approve it before it goes out. And so anything like this, where it's like, oh, well, this rendering maybe tells a different story than that rendering, we would, you know, be able to address that or correct it or before it goes
But
out.
we know nothing right now about what the piers actually look like. Right, so those are simply placeholders, and it would be helpful to help people understand that. And maybe that's where you include some of the aesthetics committee work.
Recommendations on.
So that people understand, like, look, don't react to these really boring pedestals because that's.
Just make them ghosted in rectangle stuff. I mean, it's just.
They have the people as stick figures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on this, I would think wouldn't want to show this because it shows the shoulders as being way larger. Because
That's the
yeah.
mixed
use bike ped.
It has a beach that doesn't exist.
Yep. Maybe it's not at Coburg.
I like that beach.
Jake, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I just whatever gets decided, I would like to emphasize that all the people that I talked to over the weekend, almost 99% of them are going to be at the Centennial event, and if we could have some of these graphics there at that event to show people, I think would be a great idea if it's possible. I understand that's less than a month away, but if we could bring those to that event, I think a lot of people would appreciate the update, and we can talk to them and explain to them, you know, the changes and what parts of these images is known and what parts are unknown potentially.
Yeah, I see no reason why we couldn't have, I mean, maybe even a booklet of laminated, these images laminated that people could flip through. That might be really nice. The only reason we haven't had these available already was because we really wanted to be thoughtful and wanted to make sure that we were sharing the right images with the right messaging to people in the right way. And so that's what this rollout is going to be all about. And that's so we're aiming to, you know, release all of these around September 24th. And so we should be able to have them for that October 6th event, no problem.
Awesome, great.
Where's the passing lane?
Off the bridge.
Am I okay to stop sharing, or do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah, that's really helpful, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I just think there gotta be some words that are shared about the fact that the piers haven't been designed, the railings haven't been designed, all sorts of stuff hasn't been designed here. This is just helping you conceptualize what the scale of the thing is. And it would be nice to have, by the way, have a sketch of the what's the view from the side to show the height of this bridge compared to the
Profile.
view.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever seen one of those, and I think that would be really, that's a key element that people aren't getting.
Like an elevation profile superimposed on
the
existing photo.
Exactly, yeah.
There's one of the proposed one in the EIS documents, but that I don't think it superimposes with the existing one, so maybe we could look into that.
Yeah, that would be helpful for the public to understand.
Yeah, because I just keep telling people that one of the challenges to the bike ped lane is that you're climbing more, you're climbing significantly more, and I don't think people understand that.
Yeah, it's not just a flat shot across the river like.
Plus, coming back into Hood River, they're gonna be cruising down into town.
Well, that's one of the things we talked about. Yeah, you get up speeds that may be problematic, and that's why you have. That was one of the things that motivated the separation of the high speed and low speed traffic.
Yeah,
the big turtles at the bottom. You gotta navigate.
Natural
Do as fast as you can make it through the turtles.
On the Columbia River Highway, we put inset basalt into the pavement. So there's basically a rumble strip before any populated areas. Well, populated, I mean like campgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because we have several places where people are going to be coming down the viaduct, the big viaduct, you come right into a campground below.
Yeah, near Viento.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Well, the Lindsay piece the other side,
That new area has the same sort of things in there. Those are all design considerations. Yeah.
They work really well. They're very, very subtle, and I like the idea of turtles. Especially just keep moving. That's
part of the fun.
Yeah. Well, whack-a-mole, we just have moles that pop up.
And everyone knows that we're joking.
Oh, yeah, we're joking. That's a joke.
All right,
far off topic. Must be about done.
Yes. So anyway, I don't have any problems with those concepts, especially as they're laid out and whatnot. So cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Anything else to talk about?
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that stuff with us. Okay. Nothing else from you guys? Nothing from online? Yeah. In that case, our next meeting is Monday, September 23rd. We don't have anything else. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We can tell Jake that you got done
Thanks for
18
minutes.